Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated on providing you the how-tos of marketing and networking strategies. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Welcome to this episode of Networking with Michelle. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez. I wanted to do a bonus episode testing the waters a little bit if I'm going to go to twice a week or not. But more importantly, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that this past weekend on Saturday, January 21st, here in Houston, as well as cities nationwide, got together and rallied for the Women's March. And even though I wasn't able to participate in the march, I definitely stand behind the movement. And fast forward to today, at least Monday, the 23rd, I had the chance to interview Kelly Hoey. She is an acclaimed columnist, a networking expert, and she's the author of the brand new book, Build Your Dream Network, Forging Powerful Relationships in a Hyper-Connected World. And the synergy that we had in this interview, I felt like it was only fitting in order for me to release this as soon as possible. And one of the things I asked her was, how do we address this assumption, this stereotype that women are not good networkers, that women are not good negotiators, or that we're not aggressive or as aggressive as men when it comes to our career, be it corporate or entrepreneurship. So it's very interesting of what she says. And some of the other things we talk about is, what is the process of networking? The mindset versus the activities. Who's a better networker, introverts or extroverts, right? That's always up for discussion. So I think you'll like what she has to say. But more importantly, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from her was how she has changed my definition of diversity, right? She has brought in my definition of diversity, not only meaning gender and race, but you could be diverse, of course, in religion and class and career industries, right? Not just the demographic or the top two surface demographics that we always think about, but going deeper into that as well as the psychographics. And it's so simple and visible. It wasn't clicking for me. So that's definitely something that I learned from Kelly in this interview. This is a great interview. I definitely want you to get your pen and paper ready. Another thing, we talk about the imposter syndrome. And one of my favorite quotes that she mentioned is that sometimes your network sees more in you than you see in yourself. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes your network sees more in you than you see in yourself. Look, also want to state that this episode is brought to you by Line 25 Consulting, empowering entrepreneurs to develop their personal brand by leveraging relationships and expertise. You can visit Line 25 by going to their website at line25consulting.com, line25consulting.com. Without further ado, Kelly Hoey. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Networking with Michelle. I am so excited about today's guest, Kelly Hoey. She is an acclaimed business columnist and networking expert, so she's talking my language. And she's also the new author of Build Your Dream Network. I'm already excited. Kelly, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm sort of thrilled to talk the same language with someone else who gets networking and, to share insights. So this is going to be fun.
Absolutely. So what's your backstory?
My backstory, it's a backstory that is only explained by networks and connections. Yeah, exactly. It's a giggle. I started my career as an attorney. I was doing banking and insolvency law in Toronto, Ontario. I am Canadian. Moved to New York City in 1998. I continued to practice law for another 4 years and then moved from, one side of the law firm to the other. I moved out of the active practice of law into law firm management, and that was a networking lesson in and of itself. I did that for 5.5 years, built a professional development department, built a global women's initiative, and built an alumni program at one law firm, and then leapt at the NSO, the request, and sort of instigation of Janet Hansen, the founder of 85 Broads, a global network for women in business. And that network is now called Elevate. Sally Krawcheck purchased it and heads it up. And as a result of that experience, that confidence boost, that engagement with a much more diverse network of professionals, I really expanded my professional point of view and horizon, and went on to start angel investing, co-founded a startup accelerator, was the intern CMO for a startup, and then finally really started deeply listening to my own network. And that's where the book came along. So there we go in a nutshell.
And how do you define networking?
I define networking as every human interaction. I think we confuse networking as a mindset and networking as an activity. And if we limit it to networking as an activity, we typically limit it to an activity we don't enjoy, which, I mean, I'm sure you say the word and people automatically imagine handing out business cards at some sort of a cocktail reception and having to make idle small chat with people they don't know and don't know why they're talking to them. And that is, a human activity that is uncomfortable for most people. So I think of networking as every human interaction. So that is, I don't know, sharing this podcast when it comes out with your friends and followers on Facebook or Twitter. It is your email signature line. It is your business card. And it is the coffee dates you request or the networking receptions you choose to go to.
Absolutely. And I know that's one thing I'm trying to hone in on with people, or on my message to people, is that, networking is not about attending the business event, right? You can meet someone equally great at the car wash, at McDonald's. It's not always the environment, but it is your mindset and the activity, pretty much, if you want to initiate the conversation with anyone at any time.
Exactly. And, as I always say to people and suggest to them, it is, I would say it is the process of networking that I have pursued and that I share in my book, Build Your Dream Network, is, start with the direction you're headed. Start with the goal, the ambition, the challenge. If networking is problem solving, what is the specific challenge, goal, ambition, problem that you need the help of other people with? And then who are the people who can help you? We can get confused about algorithms and platforms and technology, but it's people, and it is always people who help us, in terms of unpacking our career ambition or, reaching a milestone in our lives. And then what are the tactics and tools you need to use to connect either initially or more significantly with the people who can help you with your challenge or goal? And so that's the way I kind of look at networking. And I always, when people sort of come to me and they're like, hey, what do you think about this networking group? Or what do you think about this? I always say to them, let's go back to your goal. Like, what's your goal? Now, who do you need to connect to and with? And are they even in that networking room that you're seeking to, figure out how to maneuver more effectively?
Absolutely. I was looking at your bio, and you just said it yourself with your law background. And I also listened to the Art of Charm podcast with Jordan Harpinger, and he also has a law background. And one thing he always mentions is just, I guess, in law, that rainmaker mentality, having a strong network. Do you think certain industries put more emphasis on networking, and therefore you kind of have some people better than, other people in different industries?
That's a really interesting question, because so many lawyers are introverts, and so many lawyers who go into big firms, when I think about in particular, and that's where my legal career was, within big firms. But when you think whether you're big firms or a solo practitioner, you do need to be an entrepreneur, and you do need to be successful at networking, because your book of business and your success is like any other entrepreneur or business owner. I often make the suggestion, and particularly thinking about if listeners to your podcast, Michelle, are really thinking about what careers they should go into. I always suggest to people, look at an industry, look at a company, look at a department, whatever it is where you're interviewing, and think about how people are successful. So if you take the practice of law as an example, there's all sorts of different areas of the practice of law. There's all sorts of different firms and environments to be in. So if you're interviewing with a firm and you're thinking about what area of law you're interested in within that firm or that company, look and see how people become successful. And a lot of that is with respect to networking. But is it networking by public speaking? Is it networking by writing? Is it networking by having to go to a lot of conferences or speaking at conferences? Is it networking because you have to go and meet a lot of clients and do a lot of client events? And understand the activities you have to undertake to be successful, because you may look at it and go, I don't want to do those things. Therefore, find another, profession or industry. The other thing I would add, and I know you've been reading the book, what was interesting for me in interviewing certain individuals for the case studies that appear in Build Your Dream Network, that most of the people I interviewed were introverts. And they are across a wide variety of industries, from a manager in the aftermarkets department of GoDaddy to, I want to say, a blogger to a venture capitalist, legal recruiter, author, adventurer. I can look at the back of the book and figure out who else I interviewed, but most were introverts. So there is an aspect of this that we've painted introverts as poor networkers, where I would argue in this day and age, given the multiple demands on our time and our energy and our focus, that introverts are far better networkers. And by putting your mind to it and thoughtfully and methodically networking, you can be successful in whatever your chosen industry or profession.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, and I guess the reason for my question is because some jobs or careers require more, and I like how you said it depends on the department or the path you decide to choose. But if you think about salespeople, you're automatically going to assume the person's an extrovert, they're aggressive, they're going to talk to anybody because they're trying to sell anything.
Well, you know what? It's sales, and as I say in the book, there is a special skill with sales. And I have friends who are extraordinary salespeople. My book is not about that skill set, though. It's something I think in terms of being able to finesse in the future. And I did talk to a friend last night who's one of the co-founders of Proposition Love, a jewelry line, and he is very effective at sales. But as he says, it has to be genuine and authentic. Just like, we don't want to go to a smarmy, say schmoozy networking event. We don't want to deal with a smarmy schmoozy salesperson. But in Build Your Dream Network, the case study with Joe Styler, who is at GoDaddy, and how he networked his way from, I want to say, the customer service helpline to one of the most coveted departments and roles within the entire company, is networked. And a big piece of that story is how Joe networked to learn skills and to do better at his job. And one of the skill sets he recognized he had to do was have stronger sales skills. So he went and he figured out who were the best salespeople in the company, and he contacted them. And this is what I think is so valuable. He said to them, can I come and watch you do your job so I can understand how you sell? He didn't say to the person, can I pick your brain for 15 minutes? Can you grab a cup of coffee with me and tell me what you do? No, he really sat there and observed and internalized and then asked questions and then incorporated what was like best practice into his methods of selling and in a way that was genuine and authentic for him. And that to me was just like one of the most beautiful kind of serendipitous networking insights that came out in doing the interviews. But so for anyone, you do need to understand that you need to network and develop these skills, and you got to practice them and you got to incorporate them. And with anything, it's got to be authentic, and it's got to be genuine, and it has to feel real to you.
One of your popular favorite quotes, you said, stop committing random acts of networking. So what are these random acts that we, the people, are guilty of?
Yes, it's a perfect example is finding yourself in a cocktail reception and you don't know why you said yes, or looking at a calendar entry and having that groaning feeling of canceling it because you don't want to go and you don't know why you signed up in the first place. Sending a cold email without doing any research. Putting a Facebook post to your entire network that says, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can anyone help me? Without thinking through what it is you're really asking for. And again, doing the research so that you can make intelligent asks and not zap the time and the energy and goodwill of your network. So it's really tying your networking activities to what it is you want to achieve. Now, you may want to, your goal or your reason for networking may be discovery. It may be curiosity. I attended a heck of a lot of networking events when I really stepped into the New York startup community because I needed to understand how the community operated. So if there was a New York startup event in 2011 and early 2012, you better believe I was at it. Someone invited me, I said yes, I went because I hadn't been, more than knee deep. I needed to be neck deep in the startup community. So I had to go and I had to be seen. Did I have 2 and 3 events a night? Yes. Did I run around like a chicken with my head cut off? Absolutely. But there was a purpose to it. And so if you don't, for me, the random acts and the ones I sort of say to people, stop committing them, is when they fill their calendar or attempt to fill their calendar with a whole bunch of stuff that is tied to nothing. And they don't understand what they're doing other than being busy and social.
However, do you think there's a period where you just have to put yourself out there, like just show up, right? The popular quote, just show up. 80% is just showing up. And then is there a time where you're just maintaining the relationship and you don't have to be as visible?
Absolutely. And like, as I said, sometimes you've just got to show up. So, a new job and there's networking events at your company, show up. And then you'll get to know your colleagues, you'll get to know people across departments, and then you can start to assess, all right, which of these should I go to more often than less? And as I said, sometimes it's curiosity or inquiry, like I needed to know more about the New York startup community, or I've talked to friends who are looking to expand their networks beyond their usual interests and social circles. So, as I said to one person, think about people that you have hung out with and what are their additional interests. I know one friend who did this and found herself at Avon Ailey, doing, a dance class. And it was because one of her coworkers enjoyed to do this. And this friend of mine is like, I'm not really into dancing, let alone, sort of free form, whatever it was, dance class. If anyone knows the Avon Ailey Dance School, it's quite visible from the street when you're in these classes. And so this person put themselves in a very uncomfortable position when they thought about it on their own. But part of it was, I need to expand my activities and my network. So here's a colleague I really like, let me go and do this. And then on sort of just maintaining. There may be times in your life where you've got a project or a focus that you need to really dedicate time to. So you have to learn how to say no. And that's where creating a filter of knowing when to say yes and when to say no, and when to leverage all the tools at our disposal, from social networks to how you're communicating, email or voicemail or messaging, to the selective events or other opportunities you show up at. Like, create a filter so that you know when you need to say yes, and the really fast ability to say no, so that you can focus on, your big project, your big ambition. I really needed to do that myself in 2015 and a lot of 2016, because of the time frame that I was pursuing both getting a publisher and then having to write and deliver a manuscript, and then all the editing. But at the same time, I couldn't fall off the map completely. So I really had to kind of, I would say, live my own advice.
I agree with that. And I think one of the reasons why it resonates with me right now, my Facebook profile said I'm a networker in hiding, because like you, it's like I'm trying to, stay focused on these projects and creating another book. And it does become overwhelming. I think the plus side for me is I'm great with following up with people or just checking in with people. And social media definitely makes that easy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? And you have just, Michelle, you've just nailed it. If people want to stand out when they're networking, if people want to maintain relationships and make a strong impression, following up is absolutely key. Absolutely key. And it's like one piece of networking that people really like. I want to say, if there's something people constantly fall on their face on with networking, that is it. And finding ways to follow up, and whether that is using an email feature that, snoozes, like Gmail does, snooze an email from someone for a couple of weeks, and then it hits in your inbox, and that's a reminder for you to reach back out. To, yes, go on Facebook, and wish people a happy birthday, or go on there and scan a few people's streams and like their posts or do whatever, or ping them through a flat platform like that to say, hey, how are you and how are you doing, and still following your advice, or whatever the follow up or sort of maintaining a relationship message you need to deliver. But that is like absolutely key. And if people get nothing else out of our conversation in my book, like follow up, follow up, follow up.
Definitely. I want to pivot a little bit. I'm in Houston, Texas. You're in New York. And this past weekend, there was a Women's March that was nationwide. And I know on Sheryl Sandberg's website, leanin.org, she released a study saying that women are not as effective as men in creating and capitalizing on business and personal networks. Not just networks, but even when it comes to negotiation on a business level, salary, wages, things of that nature. What can we do as women to dismantle that stereotype? Because I feel like, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman entrepreneur, I feel like I see it, but then, I still read things like this that kind of makes me wonder.
I want to say, yeah. Well, here's the thing: there's an assumption, and sort of a generalization that women have narrow, deep networks. So you think about networks that are good for getting feedback, close friends, that tight knit peer group, and that men, on the other hand, it's typically assumed that they have these broader, shallower networks. The reality is you need to have both. You need to have that narrow, deep network that you can go to for feedback, advice, mentorship, that close team who's got your back, who's going to give it to you honestly. And then you need that wider network of loose ties because that's where opportunities come from. I had a very narrow, deep network in law and finance in 2002. I then had to spend 18 months building a broader network to make a career change because the career change I wanted was not going to come from the existing network I had. So whether you're a woman or whether you're a man, you need to look at your network and think, do I have enough of both? Do I have enough diversity in both, I want to say, relationships, like deep or narrow? Do I have enough diversity in terms of industry? Do I have enough diversity in terms of experiences so that I can get the most opportunities in my own career? And then the other piece of it is to think about it is how are you using your network? And are you holding yourself back by not using a strong network for other purposes? The beauty of social media and our digital age and leaving this digital footprint is you can see what other people are interested in and you can see what their needs are or where there may be intersections that are beyond, hey, there's Carol, my good friend, and we get together, once a month for a book club and share a glass of wine. But, oh, Carol's interested in these causes. So am I. Maybe we should do the Women's March together. Or, oh, Carol has got a business that, creates signage. Gosh, let's use her signage for my business event. Or, start looking at what other people are doing and find those intersections to create opportunities for each other to succeed.
I like how you have brought in the definition of diversity, right? Because usually we just think of race and gender or whatever. How can we create more mentorship with that word diversity, right? When it comes to either a male mentor, different industries, how can we create more mentorship? And what's the significance of a mentor, as an adult?
I mean, mentorship has been absolutely vital in my career. And I think one of the ways to create more diversity and more opportunities for mentorship is, sort of expand your definition of what it is and what your imagination is on what mentorship is. Mentorship does not need to be one-on-one. It does not need to be a lifetime relationship. Mentorship is, for me, as examples, is, I don't know, someone listening to this podcast and getting tips and advice from it. And based on listening to that, maybe they buy your book, buy my book, read it, and get more guidance on what they need to achieve. Maybe they then follow one of us on a social media channel and ask us a question. You can get mentorship based on, I want to say, the output of information so many of us put out there between blogs, tweets, posts. So you can start looking for mentorship in that kind of broader sense. I think also it comes back to knowing what it is that you're seeking and then how the other person can help you. I mean, none of us typically has the ability to respond to a request to be a mentor when someone simply reaches out and says, hey, I really admire you. Can you be my mentor? Like, what does that mean? Right? So rather, when someone understands and can ask a specific question and says, I'd really like to seek your advice on this, and the person has done their research, and, kind of I harp on that a lot. They've read posts that maybe I've done. They've, watched any of the, the videos that are available online. Maybe they've read the book, whatever the case is. And they say, you know what, I've done this and I still have this question that I can't seem to find the answer on. And here is my specific question. That is something that someone like myself can answer, respond to, and that is mentoring. And so I think too, when you're trying to get mentored, whether it is up the chain or down the corporate ladder, whether it is across age, race, gender, whatever, the hurdles are you want to put in there, is to really know why that other person can provide insights or guidance you're seeking, and then ask specifically for an answer to that question. And I think that will help in terms of, sometimes, I think particularly when we deal with social dynamics beyond our, I want to say beyond our race and gender, and maybe our race and gender and socioeconomic, if you want to add that in there, and maybe our race, gender, socioeconomic, and age. When it's beyond someone who looks exactly like us, I think there are, I don't know, sometimes it's just like one of those things that makes it awkward. So I think you can break down those barriers by having a very specific question.
I like that. I kind of want to stay on that a little bit because I cater to the young professionals. At least here in Houston, we consider that anyone pretty much 23 to 45, maybe 25 to 45. They definitely have their bachelor's degree. More than likely, they're in grad school or just coming out of grad school. And I was fortunate to sit on the board of the National Black NBA Houston chapter here. And what I've realized with some of my colleagues is that there's some intimidation with that, right? A little bit of it is the imposter syndrome, where you'll go to these networking events, but you don't feel like you're up to par, right? Because it costs money to attend events, conferences, galas. You kind of feel like maybe you don't have the education, or your business is not as established as the next person, which all goes back to the mindset. Can you give us any type of advice when it comes to that for that person that's just, let's just say 30 years old, they're a professional, they're transitioning, they know things, but they don't really know what they know?
Exactly. Well, I want to hit on a few things from what you have said, Michelle. Is some of the best networking is simply listening, and early in your career to be investing in yourself by attending and participating and signing up and going is that's like the best investment you can make. And go and listen and learn. And if someone asks you why you joined or why you're there, it's like early in my career. I have heard a lot of good things about this organization, and it has really been a foundation for other people's career, and that's why I'm here. And you don't have to be the one who's showing off your knowledge and experience. You're there to learn and gain skills and understand what skills and what activities you're there to be a part of. And investing in yourself. I know these things cost money to attend, but if you're not your own best investment, I do not know what is. And so don't think, oh, I can't go, my company won't pay for this, or oh, it's expensive. Ask yourself, how does this help and further my career? And if it helps and furthers your career, make the investment in yourself and be there. Also, in Jen Johnson Scalzi, her interview in my book, Build Your Dream Network, she points out when she needed to build a network for a career in New York City that she just accepted a job for, and she didn't know anyone, and she was tasked with building a new function area at a company. She joined what was then, and she's in legal marketing, she joined the Legal Marketing Association, and she quickly realized they needed help. And so she arrived at her first event, looked at them and said, hey, you look really busy. Do you need some extra hands to help you hand out name badges? Mm-hmm. Sometimes getting involved in an organization by volunteering, particularly where you're new and you don't know, anyone, and you're maybe feeling anxious of like, why am I here? Go and volunteer. And, as a side note, as Jen points out, handing out name tags is a way to know and meet everybody at an event. You know everyone by face and name. And so that's a little tip there. The other piece, and I think it ties to imposter syndrome, is sometimes your network sees more in you than you do in yourself. And if you are getting signals from your network to step up and participate or sit on a board, or they're tapping you on the shoulder and making suggestions that you should get involved in something, it may be that they're seeing more in you than you're currently seeing in yourself, and pay attention to those signals.
I love it. Taking notes. I am taking notes, okay? Look, just because I'm a host doesn't mean I'm above this.
We can always learn. We can always learn more. It's just human relationships and dynamics, and those are always changing. And as the workforce changes, as populations age, we all need to learn how to communicate, across, I want to say, a whole lot of barriers to be much more effective in our human relationships.
What's your mission behind the book? Why did you decide to write it?
My mission with the book and everything I do these days is to help other people succeed. And, it's my way to mentor a whole lot more people and hopefully mentor them to success in their career and their ambitions.
And how do you continue to challenge yourself on a regular basis?
Well, my big challenge these days is, of course, writing the book is only half the battle. You've got to sell the book. So the big challenge these days, for me, or every challenge I have these days, centers around that, and pushing myself to, I want to say, create more, both around the content here, get the word out, expand my thoughts and ideas on how I market and spread the word on the book, how I can reach and how my conversation can resonate with audiences beyond those I'm typically associated with. And then, of course, the other challenge is, as you well know, is you write one book and people say, when's the next one?
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. I'm in complete awe of you. Definitely want to encourage everyone to get this book, Build Your Dream Network, Forging Powerful Relationships in a Hyper-Connected World. I mean, the title alone speaks for itself and where we are today as, society. And she has pictures.
I have an amazing illustrator. So shout out to Gina, a very talented designer here in New York City, who was able to take my vision and put it into some amazing illustrations.
Kelly, how do you define success?
For me, it's seeing other people become successful. And I know that may sound corny, but I had a boss early on in my legal career who defined his success by how he trained and mentored his team to be better lawyers than he was. And that was a lasting impression. And so not being scared of the success of others and giving them the tools and encouragement and advice to pursue their own success, that's success to me.
Definitely. And how can people get in touch with you? How can they get the book?
I want to say there's a whole lot of information on my website, which is www.jkellyhoey, Hoey.co. It's a .co, not a .com. It's a .co. And I am frequently found on Twitter. So if you can put what you want to ask me in 140 characters, go find me on Twitter. I'm at JK Hoey. But if it's longer than 140 characters, there's a contact Kelly on my website, and there's a form, and that'll land in my inbox. So happy to take, feedback, ideas, suggestions, aha moments, questions. Contact me there.
All right, everyone. Please visit her website. Please get the book. This book is absolutely amazing. As soon as you open it, it's just nugget after nugget after nugget, and not just her perspective, but also stories. As she mentioned, she has several interviews, case studies that help help you gain, more insight on how to be an effective networker. So Kelly, once again, thank you for coming on to show. Everyone, remember, I believe in you. A personal connection leads to an influential network. Thanks for networking with Michelle.